Hi, and welcome back to another episode of TubaPeopleTV, where we talk about Arnold Jacobs all of the time. Puddles and I are in beautiful San Antonio, here with Adele Condreay, an old friend.
Right.
Emphasis on friend, not necessarily old.
I'm not sure about the old, yeah. We
Yeah.
can talk about that.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Adele and I were at Northwestern together back in the old days, and we were in the Millar Brass Ensemble together. There she is, right there. There she is.
Curly hair and all.
Curly hair and all. And we had some really good times back then, didn't we?
It was awesome. It was
Yeah.
a great group. What a terrific collision of wonderful talents and friends.
It was. It really
It was
was.
great.
And that's a good word, too. Collision. It really was sometimes a collision. It really was. And Adele is a Baylor University graduate, so Puddles has company with Adele's Baylor University phone cover.
Nice
So,
colors, but
Yeah,
mascot's a little.
this is true. The colors are very, very similar. And along the way, you had some studies with Arnold Jacobs.
Oh, what a privilege.
I'm wondering, can you recount for us what first drew you to Mr. Jacobs' studio?
Well, I got my master's degree at Northwestern and kind of ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw with a teacher that we didn't click very well. And so I came out of that year not at my best. I'd lost a lot of confidence. I wasn't playing very well. And thankfully some friends pointed me to Mr. Jacobs. And he was just such a gift for me because at that time I couldn't figure out how to fix myself. I grew up kind of as an intuitive player. Was blessed to have a teacher that he would play and I would play with him, and that's how I learned.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I ran into these difficulties, I really had nothing to pull forward. And Mr. Jacobs was just fantastic about. He put me together as a person and as a player, and really kind of set me on a wonderful path to wholeness again, and as a basis for the rest of my life.
Wow.
It was a gift.
That's amazing. So yeah, you were studying. Remember over dinner you were talking about studying with your teacher here in San Antonio, and that was a deal where your teacher would play a lot, and then he would say, "Now imitate what I just did."
Absolutely. Well, we'd play together.
Yeah.
And so, I never really thought a lot about the mechanics when I was learning from him. I just did whatever came naturally to sound like him. And I didn't realize that until, of course, we were talking today and talking about the experiences with Arnold Jacobs, and then it clicked that how similar it was. Now, I didn't, at the time, I think if I'd known what Mr. Jacobs taught me verbally as well as, with the sound, I might have had something to pull forward.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I was so young at the time, it was probably best that I didn't know those things.
Sure. And so then your experience at Northwestern was more in the mechanical and the methodology, the physical, so that kind of got your mind going in a different direction, and that's when you saw Mr. Jacobs to kind of bring you back to the more of the conceptual. What do you remember? This was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was.
1983-ish, 84.
83, 84.
Do you remember what those initial lessons was like?
It was interesting because I was so locked up at that point.
Physically locked up.
Physically locked up, mentally locked up. That he was really just addressing getting me to relax, and from getting me to relax, which of course was dealing a lot with the air and singing. And so we didn't spend very much time on the instrument. We spent a lot of time talking, singing, buzzing.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go that far, but I was very far from the instrument at that point. I had to go that far back to get back to the basics and to get out of my way.
So he would really not even have you use the instrument much, if any.
Not much. At that point, we were just trying to get back to, what it was to produce a good sound on the mouthpiece. Mm-hmm. And then, do enough repetitions on the mouthpiece that I could then get it to the horn.
Wow.
So we really went back to square one.
So doing just learning my own experience, and I know from watching other students of his working on breathing, horns in the case, horns on the ground, not in the hands, working on breathing. We're just getting the breathing to function much more easily.
Exactly.
And
Exactly right.
more or less build new habits, bypassing the existing habits.
That's right.
And then with the singing, involving the creative, the
Mhm.
conceptual.
Mm-hmm. And getting back to not focusing on the instrument and playing the horn, but getting on what was it that I wanted to produce.
Mm.
What was the music? What was the sound? What was the most important thing?
Mm-hmm.
Which is because when you bring that instrument up and you don't know what you want it to sound like, then whatever's going to come out of it is kind of a crapshoot.
Mm-hmm.
There's no telling, and that's really where I was. I was that locked up, and so he was trying to get me back to my first love.
Music,
Mhm.
expression.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's great. And so you had a period of time where you were doing this, and do you recall about how long?
Oh,
How many lessons you would be in this? Just more getting back to the basics.
it sadly it took me a long time. I'd say probably it was really even a year before I could really relax and get the kind of sound out on the instrument. This is getting it to the horn.
Yeah.
It probably took me a good year before I was able to really do it on a reliable basis. And of course I'm still gigging.
Right.
Right? So, and when I say a year, it's doing it on the job. It's something that I could do at home, but then when I got out and the nerves came in and the head started running and I was thinking about everything but what I should have been thinking about, which was the music.
Yeah.
And so the new habit, or bringing back the old habit of singing, took a very long time for me.
So he really was very patient with you in getting you to, insisting with you
Mhm.
to build up these basics, to build up these new ideas, or getting back to what really were your old ideas,
That's right.
and bypassing the problem ideas.
Yeah.
And so he was very, very patient with you, insisting that you.
He was.
But then when you're on stage, just do what you do.
That's right. You can't overanalyze when you're performing.
Right.
And so, of course, I have to say there were immediate results, but it just wasn't reliable. So as a performer, for me to know that I could go out and I was going to be able to do what I needed to do to make the music on stage,
Mhm.
that's why I set that longer bar. But in that first lesson, it was magical. The way in his presence I was able to produce the old sound again.
And that taught you that it's possible.
Yes, absolutely. The
And
hope
so-
was there.
Yeah, and so you would go home, go practice during the week with that memory in mind.
Yes,
Yeah.
so much so. And thankfully I was also surrounded by friends who, like yourself, who were schooled in this, and you were encouraging me all the way through,
Right.
and that was invaluable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great stuff.
Yeah.
So looking past that first year where he was helping you to get back to really where you had come from before you encountered the other teacher,
Hmm.
what were you working on after that?
Well, of course, it's the never-ending story of trying to get the air and the mechanics as well. But really, what we spent most of our time at that point was the artistry. And when I came to Chicago, I was coming from a very small market in Texas, and so was not exposed to a lot of the things that a thriving professional would need to be exposed to. And he did such a wonderful job of preparing me, and helping me to prepare for the auditions that I was preparing for at the time, and really just raising my whole level of expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Standards.
absolute standards, and just the smallest, tiniest detail in how the music came across.
Right.
And helping me to recognize it and then translate it.
Mm-hmm.
While at the same time not letting any of the old habits creep back in.
Right.
Which was really wonderful. He was such a consummate professional.
He was. Yeah.
And to pass those lessons on to me was wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did he talk about? You remember anything about subphrasing or microphrasing or projection, or how did it work out for a French horn? You know, what was it? What do you remember that may have been?
You know, it's interesting. I don't think he used any of those technical words with me because I was a very simple person.
Yeah.
Probably still am. But yeah, absolutely. You know, the concept that what you hear at your bell, you know, especially with a horn, your bell is facing backwards.
Yeah.
What you hear at your bell is not what's going to project out front.
Yeah.
And so recognizing the difference and knowing how to exaggerate just enough, and how to recognize, you know, different types of halls and those sorts of things, how you had to play differently, blending with different instruments. It was wonderful the way he also taught how to economize on the air. I'm not the largest person, you know, I didn't have the biggest lungs.
Right.
And so to be able to hold up to someone, you know, a big barrel-chested whatever, that had twice the lung capacity as me, there were just the little fine professional tidbits that allowed me to go far beyond my expectations. Now that wasn't, I wouldn't have probably remembered that if you hadn't coaxed me into it. Because what I remember of so much was how it was all about getting out of my own body's way, you know, by focusing, and especially as I started to get tired, or I wasn't feeling well, or I was, you know, my chops weren't feeling good, and to go further into the head and further into the concept of what I wanted it to sound like at those times. Really, honestly, that is the thing I remember the most. As
you felt discomfort here, for whatever reason, to switch to really go even further,
absolutely,
into the concept,
because
the song part.
You're not going to feel good every day. You know, you're going to get tired at the end of a concert, but you can't let the music suffer because of that.
I remember him. One of the things that stuck with me early on was, you know, you can't hold up a sign to the audience and say, "Excuse me," while I have a meltdown because my chops aren't feeling very good.
Yeah.
The audience doesn't want to see that sign. They just want to hear great music.
Yeah, they don't care. They paid their ticket, and you know.
They expect.
That's right, and they should.
Right.
They absolutely should. So, you know, that was probably every lesson that was in there for me.
And you know, getting back to when you were studying here in San Antonio with the imitation aspect, play and then copy or play along with me, that sort of thing. Did he get you to? I'm sure he didn't play French horn in your lesson, but did he get you to conjure up memories of either your teacher here or some other player that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great memory. We sang so much in those lessons.
Okay, yeah.
And then, you know, he would ask, just like you say, he would ask me to think of my favorite player on this phrase. You know, what did it sound like? Or think of a cello, or think of a whatever instrument it was, to hear that. Actually, honestly, a lot of it wasn't thinking of horn players. It was thinking of vocalists.
Yeah.
Or, you know, other instruments, other talents, which was good because, you know, if you think only of brass instruments, you're going to have the idiosyncrasies of a brass player, and getting away to the vocalist or the others, you can overcome those things.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great lesson, really.
Yeah.
Now, Adele, in the intervening years, you've since left music and gone into, I guess, more of the financial sector, financial business, financial services.
That's it.
Sector, and you are currently for a very well-known large firm that's here in San Antonio. You are an organizational effectiveness consultant.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's right.
And what was really interesting to me when we were reconnecting through our messaging was how you have come to realize that what you do as an organizational effectiveness consultant in the financial sector is based upon Jacobs.
Surprisingly, as you and I started to talk, I really started to connect the dots between the principles that he uses when he's teaching.
Yeah.
And the principles behind organizations functioning well. You know, to risk being academic. There's a thing called systems theory, and basically the idea is that everything is connected. An organization is made up of many parts, just like the body.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to apply it to horn playing, there's the wind, there's the embouchure, there's the fingers, there's the body. All of it has to work together to produce the very best music that you possibly can. And in Jacob's teaching, he was, at least with me, the message that I heard every single time I was with him was that I had to have foremost in my mind the music, the sound, everything that I wanted to produce as the primary focus. And then the body would align to it, assuming that I had done the right things to teach the mechanics and take care of myself and have a good embouchure and the right instrument and all those things.
Right.
It's very, very similar with an organization.
Mm.
When you're looking at doing the right work in the right way, with the right information, with the right people and the right skills, in the right structure, all of these things have to work together to achieve whatever strategy it is that you've set forth. And all of those things have to be aligned in such a way that everybody knows where they're going, what they're going to produce. But if you're having to tell each and everything, every day, every minute, what to do, the organization is paralyzed. Same as with being a horn player. If I was to have to tell this muscle what to do, I would never produce a sound of music.
Mm.
And so, organizational effectiveness is about getting all of the organization and the leaders and the people and all of the things that make it up aligned to understand where the strategy is, that is where you want to go,
mm-hmm.
and then getting all of the right work in place to get everybody aligned to produce that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's every day's a little different with that.
Mm-hmm.
Same as with your instrument. You feel a little different every day, but if you know where you're going and you're structured appropriately, then and you're measuring yourself well, then you're much more likely to have a good result than if everybody's thinking something differently. So it's amazing to me how well the principles and the concepts come together.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea when I landed in this. I knew that it seemed right to me,
mm-hmm.
and I knew that it made sense, but I had not made the connection back to Arnold Jacobs and everything that he taught me.
Yeah.
So it's been just fascinating to ponder this as we've been talking.
Yeah.
But I believe that his principles are timeless, and that you can apply it to every aspect of life if you really think it through.
Yeah, I mean, his time. I think you're right. I think his principles are timeless because they're based on people,
Mm-hmm.
and people are timeless.
That's right. That's right. We're also similar in so many ways. We like to think we're different, but behaviorally and motivationally, we have more in common than not.
Yeah.
And so. To think on those things. Where is it you want to go with your life? Where do you want to go with your organization?
Yeah.
What do you want to do with your music? What do you want it to sound like?
Right.
The brain's a powerful thing.
It is. It is. And do you find yourself, well, maybe because it's so new in terms of our discussion and your realization based upon our discussion online, trying to set good habits with, because the brain works on percentages, and habits are based on repetition and, that sort of thing, just the actual doing it repetitively. How does that relate, how would that manifest itself in your job?
In my job?
Yeah.
Oh, every day's learning for me. So, the same principles apply. The more you do it, the better you get.
Yeah.
The more you can learn from your mistakes. And the other thing that you reminded me of is that Arnold Jacobs was different with every student because we each had different needs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same when you're dealing with organizational effectiveness. Every organization is different.
Mm-hmm.
Every person is different. And so to try and understand what the needs are and then align my consulting to the needs of that person or that organization to provide them with the right guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Is very, very much the way he taught.
maybe you can recount for the audience. You were mentioning at dinner, the Patch Adams thing, and how there's the conceptual and there's the objective, or like the checklist person and the conceptual product oriented. What was that?
So a few years ago, I went back and got my MBA because I thought I must be missing something. I see the world a little differently from everyone else, and I would see things in the organization that that others weren't able to see in terms of opportunities or challenges. And so I went back and got my MBA, and this program was wonderful because it wrapped into it a leadership program that was designed to help us see things with fresh eyes. So one of the things was this scene from Patch Adams, where Patch Adams is Robin Williams and he's the doctor, and this patient keeps running up and what do you see? And he'd say 4 fingers. The guy'd go running off and they'd come back, what do you see? And this kept going until finally towards the end of the movie, Robin Williams had an epiphany. And he realized that what the guy was saying was, what do you see? The 4 fingers. If you're in an MBA or in a business, it's the bottom line, right? Your financials, your numbers, these things that MBAs will teach are the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And the lesson of this scene is that Robin Williams looked beyond the 4 fingers to see the person beyond. And so in seeing things with fresh eyes, he realized that there's more to life, there's more to music, there's more to organizations than the things that you can reach out and touch, the 4 things, the financials or the number of products or whatever it is. There is a world around it, a context around it that you need to be aware of, and that we need to shape ourselves to be able to influence and to take care of those things as well. And so, I guess in my music days it was, did you hit all the right notes? Was it soft or loud? Whatever. Was it in the right rhythm? Those are probably the 4 fingers. But the things that Arnold Jacobs taught us was the things that are beyond the 4 fingers. The things that made it the mastery, the real music, the things that could reach out and touch your soul, that he enabled you to do.
That's such a great analogy. It blows me away to hear it again. I'm going to have to watch this episode several times just to get that. But the checkbox things. These are got to practice my scales, got to practice my range. Well, all the checkbox things that Jake was about that. Do that, but look to the intangibles. Right. That's it. Adele, it's been just amazing to get together with you and Puddles. As always, he would like me to give you a token of our appreciation for participating in this project and for getting together with us and for looking past the 4 fingers and putting what you're doing now together with what this project is about and for sharing that. That's been really great. So we'd like you to have your very own TubaPeopleTV water bottle.
I am so honored to be an honorary Tuba People.
Exactly.
Near and dear to my heart. Thank you, sir.
Adele, great to see you.
Good to see you as well.
And now back to you.